In 1996, a murder occurred in the United States that shook the entire country. 6-year-old Jonbenet Ramsey was found dead in the basement of her parents' home. The tragedy took place on Christmas night and left numerous unanswered questions that the investigation has yet to resolve. One of the key players in this story is the little girl's parents, John and Patricia Ramsey, who have been both the main suspects in the crime and have profited from their daughter's death. Recently, DNA test results were made public, exonerating them, but the case remains unresolved. The Christmas evening of December 25, 1996, will forever be etched in the memories of the residents of Boulder, Colorado. JonBenét Ramsey, the daughter of wealthy computer company owner John Ramsey and his wife Patricia, went to celebrate Christmas with friends in the company of her parents. The celebration was joyful, with Santa Claus entertaining the children throughout the evening. JonBenét Ramsey was a beauty queen who had won numerous titles by the age of 6, including Little Miss Charlevoix, Little Miss Colorado, Cover Girl from Colorado, and Tiny Miss America. The content little girl fell asleep in the car on the way home, and her father carried her to her room when they arrived home. The last time anyone saw her alive was at 10 p.m. when her parents put her to bed. What happened next closely resembles the plot of a detective novel with thriller elements. The best minds of the American police were involved in the investigation, including genetic experts, psychologists, and forensic specialists. They even ordered a special fake tombstone for the girl's grave, embedding listening devices to gather additional information. However, the murder of the little girl remained unsolved. Who deprived the young beauty queen of her life? The investigation has two main theories. The first suggests an intruder or killer entered the house, while the second implicates family members, the Ramseys, including her mother, father, and older brother, who was 9 years old at the time. The latter theory persisted for many years, but recent DNA tests officially cleared the family of suspicion. As the investigation continues to search for new leads, let's recap what is known about this case. On December 26th, JonBenét's mother woke up at 5 a.m. to prepare for a family trip to Lake Michigan. Descending the stairs, she noticed a letter on the last step. The message stated that her daughter JonBenét, who, as we recall, should have been peacefully asleep in her bed since 10 p.m., had been kidnapped, and a ransom of $118,000 was demanded for her safe return. Patricia immediately woke her husband, and they decided to call the police, despite the warning in the letter not to do so under any circumstances. The criminals also mentioned that they would call between 8 o'clock and 10 a.m. to provide instructions for delivering the money. The police arrived, and everyone, both law enforcement and family members, waited for the call. However, no one ever called. It was then decided to search the house. When JonBenét's father, accompanied by a friend, went down to the basement, he discovered his daughter's lifeless body wrapped in a blanket. The girl's head bore 2 large hematomas, and traces of blood were found on her underwear, which, as later determined, did not belong to her. Her hands were bound above her head with a white cord. Initially, she was struck on the head with a heavy object, possibly hitting a wall or a door, and then she was strangled. Certainly, the police mishandled the case from the beginning, a fact they later acknowledged. The house was not thoroughly searched, and when they finally decided to inspect it, it was John's friend, not law enforcement, who accompanied him to the basement. As a result, crucial evidence may have been lost, and the chances of solving the crime based on hot leads dwindled to 0. 2 theories emerged regarding what happened. An intruder broke into the house. It remained to be determined whether this person was acquainted with the girl or a stranger. The girl's parents were involved in the murder. Upon learning of the suspicions against them, The affluent couple promptly hired top-notch lawyers. Following their advice, John and Patricia steadfastly refused to provide written statements, which the investigators hoped would yield insights from psychological experts. There exists a methodology that can fairly accurately discern truth from lies in written witness statements. The subsequent actions of the girl's mother and father also raised questions. They declined further questioning and asserted that they had already shared all relevant information with the investigators during unofficial conversations. But why were the parents initially suspected in the first place? In this story, there are many peculiarities, most of which are related to the parents' behavior. For instance, they claim that they undressed their daughter before bedtime and let her hair down. However, when Jonbenet was found, she was wearing a festive dress and her hair was styled in 2 ponytails, one at the back of her head and another on top, where laurel wreath leaves were stuck. Does this mean they lied? There's no answer. During the autopsy, undigested pineapple pieces were discovered in the girl's stomach, indicating that she had eaten approximately 4 hours before her death. According to her parents, Jonbenet's last meal was during the celebration around 8 p.m. So, how did the pineapple end up in her stomach? No answer. Interestingly, police found this fruit in the family's refrigerator. Some windows and doors in the house were left unlocked overnight. Why didn't the parents secure the home? Perhaps they unlocked the doors after the tragedy occurred to confuse the investigation. Not long before the incident, Patricia and John had distributed keys to their residence to various people, friends, relatives, and household staff, supposedly so they could watch over the house during the owner's upcoming vacation. Another somewhat suspicious fact. When Patricia wrote texts for handwriting analysis, she intentionally altered her handwriting. Why did she do that? No answer. Why? Initially, the investigation explored the theory that the father was the killer. It was speculated that in a fit of anger, John was on antidepressants. He accidentally struck the girl's head against something, believed she had died, and then staged her murder to appear as if committed by an intruder. There were also allegations that he engaged in sexual acts with his daughter, but this was also unconfirmed. As for the kidnapper's note, it was determined that it had been prepared in advance using a typewriter. Authorities searched everywhere they could, inside the house, the office, and John Ramsey's garages, but found no such device. The police faced accusations of fixating on the parents' guilt and failing to explore other theories. Even within the investigative team, there were disagreements. Some focused on the family's involvement, while others insisted on an intruder theory. The latter group believed that the intruder entered the house through a basement window that had been broken earlier. Additionally, a smeared shoe print was found on the window. Its origin remains unknown. None of the family members wore such shoes. Jonbenet Ramsey was buried not in Boulder, but in Atlanta, Georgia, where her family had previously lived. Sometime after the murder, the Ramseys decided to move back to Atlanta. Jonbenet's mother expressed missing her little girl. In light of this, investigators planned an operation to gather additional information. They assumed that the parents would visit their daughter's grave within a few days of arriving in Atlanta and might discuss the murder there. Perhaps new details would emerge from their conversation. A fake tombstone, an exact replica of the real one, was ordered and equipped with listening devices. Surveillance was set up near the grave. However, to the police's surprise, upon arriving in the city, the parents didn't even consider visiting their daughter's grave. Instead, they went shopping, tended to household matters, and didn't plan a cemetery visit. The plan ultimately failed. A boy who happened to pass by the grave accidentally shifted the fake tombstone, and his mother promptly reported it to the cemetery administration. The operation had to be abandoned amid scandal. For a long time, the case remained open and then closed, with no clarity emerging. Journalists sensationalized it, publishing dozens of articles about the murder and new investigative details, although many of these were simply false. The public was left uncertain about whom to believe. The girl's parents appeared on television shows, gave interviews, and even released a book titled Death of Innocence, supposedly revealing everything they knew about their daughter's murder and presenting their own versions of what happened. Steve Thomas, the investigator working on the case, also published a book about it. However, none of these publications brought society any closer to unraveling this heinous crime. Finally, in 2008, something unprecedented occurred. A former teacher named John Mark confessed to JonBenét's murder. At the time, he was living in Thailand, and he was extradited to the United States to confirm or refute his guilt. Carr claimed that he was in love with the girl, had a relationship with her, and later drugged her, accidentally leading to her death. After verifying his statements, it was revealed that he was lying, although the reasons for his self-incrimination were never established. By the time Carr confessed, JonBenét's mother had already passed away from ovarian cancer at the age of 49. In 2008, DNA analysis revealed that the blood found on JonBenét's clothing did not belong to any of her relatives. The accusations against the family were dropped, but there are still people who firmly believe that the parents were involved in the girl's murder. As it turns out, the blood belongs to an unknown male. Comparing his DNA with the FBI's criminal genetic material database has yet to yield results. Whether JonBenét's killer will be found remains uncertain. Typically, stories like this eventually have rather mundane solutions, which we hope law enforcement will eventually uncover. In the meantime, we invite you to participate in our poll. What do you think? Is the brother innocent, and can beauty pageants play a fateful role in a child's life?